What is up, comic fans? It is time for another edition of Fanlight Zone Presents. And of course, I am your host. My name is Rich, and I am joined by a very, very special guest today who's doing some very amazing things all over the place, including one thing we're going to be talking about, technically a couple things we're going to be talking about today, but you know his work from such his art. You see it all over the Call of Duty franchise, the Halo franchise. You know his work also from big time movies like Elysium, Chappie, Valerian, Lucy, and of course, if you're a comic book fan, the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and of course, I can't forget about the Hobbit trilogy. But today we are talking to him about an amazing project that he is the creator of and done some amazing artwork for. And of course, that is the graphic novel Huxley. And more importantly, for this one, the prequel Huxley, the Oracle. We are joined by the one and only Ben Mauro. Ben, how are you today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, Rich.
Awesome. And listen, I'm just going to get it right out of the way. It's a fantastic book. I'm going to throw this QR code that you're going to see above my head on the screen occasionally. That will take you over to huxleysaga.com where you can order your copy of not just the first book, but also you can be like me and have your copy of Huxley the Oracle, which we'll be talking about here today. And trust me, throughout, you're going to see some artwork and everything else that was provided to us to show all of you. But before we talk about Huxley the Oracle, which is what we really want to focus on, I think it's important for anybody who might not be familiar with the graphic novel Huxley to bring them up to speed. So what exactly is Huxley?
Huxley is a post-apocalyptic science fiction graphic novel series. The first book is very much like a European kind of like heavy metal style traditional graphic novel, and the new book, The Oracle, is much more of a visual storybook, almost more in the Simon Stålenhag type of format. The first book is much more of like maybe an adventure story as these two Ronin soldiers find Huxley and kind of unlock the secrets in his memory cores and lead him on kind of like a globe-trotting adventure as they uncover secrets of this ancient robot called Huxley. And the Oracle is a bit earlier in time when Max is joining the army, almost like the height of the Roman Empire, but in AI and machine, kind of like far in the future. Like, what would that look like? What would it be like being a human in this universe, joining the army and finding your place as a human in this world that's very, very different?
Definitely kind of it's different, but it also feels very familiar and it feels very you can actually attach to it. And I think it's because of those overall tones. Yes, it takes place after the AI war, if you will, but it's also harkening back to, as you point out, Roman times. It is kind of so that's why I love the familiarity of it, as well as the futuristic look of the book and everything that goes on with it. And with that, I always like to everybody, and I know you did a good enough job there. We always like to hit up with that famous elevator pitch. What is the elevator pitch for Huxley the Oracle specifically?
In simpler terms, it's almost like Mad Max meets Terminator in the future. Something like that maybe is like the simplest, but it's very much like a soldiers on their first mission gone wrong that uncovers a conspiracy that leads to the fall of an empire. And the Oracle is sort of like the first part of a bigger story. So I would say Huxley the Oracle is almost like Doom Part 1, and the next book that we just finished would be Doom Part 2. And that's coming maybe later this year or next year. But it's mostly wrapped up now, but it's the start of a big two-part kind of like movie-sized arc of a story. Yeah.
Because it is kind of like a Mad Max meets Terminator meets the future meets Roman times meets there's so much you could just chuck into there, a little bit of everybody. It is a very big and epic story. And with that comes what you are mostly known for is the big epic kind of artwork. And we get a lot of that in the Oracle. And you kind of mentioned it earlier, and it's kind of the first thing that jumped off to me as well is when you read the first book for Huxley, it is very much, for lack of a better term, in the classic sense of a graphic novel. Panels, you have the pieces from here to there, the bubbles that tell a story. So very much graphic, or the graphic novel, inbox. However, the Oracle is this beautiful like coffee table book. Like the art, I mean, there is story, don't get me wrong, the story is in the sides, it's on the side of it. It's not like full pages of story, because you don't miss a page without having like beautiful art and this beautiful splash art that goes across, multiple pages. And I love the way I was thinking about this when I was reading it. I love the way that you can see the art, and the art is front and center. And then the story isn't, I don't want to say an afterthought, because the story is very good and it's there, but the story takes up the least amount of the room, which in this case it works perfectly. What was the thoughts in doing the book this way instead of the classic graphic novel style?
The origin of the first Huxley was sort of like, it came out of a place of, because I was working on all these movies, and when you're working on a movie, it's like an arms race of like technique. So it's like better, faster, stronger, more realistic. Every new technique in the book, and it's totally fine to do that. But what drew me to art in the first place was drawing with pencil and illustrating, and I feel like every single thing came out of my hands and my brain and my imagination. So Huxley was almost like I would go home and draw and sketch like this traditionally to feel like that sense of creative satisfaction. While during the day I'm doing crazy photo bashed or 3D renders and crazy realistic stuff for all these big directors and stuff. Um, so the first book kind of came out of this love of like traditional art and storytelling, and my love of like Mobius and heavy metal and meta barons and all this stuff growing up. And so I really wanted to like make that the first thing, and also it helped to design and create all the characters. But after we did that, we adapted it into an early trailer for like how could this look as a show? How could this look as like an animation? And worked with a small team to build everything and make sure it looked how I had envisioned, even though it was more illustrated in that book. But once we did that, there was a huge response from like Warhammer fans, Halo fans, like people who love like gritty, realistic kind of visuals. And I kind of like the idea that I could make a story and a product for them also. So it kind of crosses over into multiple different audiences. So part of it was seeing what audiences like, what I like also. Like I'm a huge fan of Simon Stalenhag's books. I'm a huge fan of like art of Dune and art of these movies. And I think that it helps reach a really broad audience. So there's fans of the first book that like this book, there's fans of this book that like, so it helps them cross over also. And we're still figuring out, after the next book is going to be the same kind of format as the Oracle, but then after that, I'm still deciding if that will go back to more of a traditional graphic novel, if that will stay a visual storybook. Yeah, it's been interesting. There's fans who love the traditional graphic novel, fans who love the storybook and don't like traditional graphic novels. So it's I kind of like that there's something for everyone.
Yeah, it is a good mix. I think that that's one of the better things about it, is you have a little bit of something for everybody. And like I said, it's a wonderful book. It looks amazing. You can put it on the coffee
Thank
table
you.
so and show off
Yeah.
the art. And then of course you can read the story, which the story is also really good. Going back to the art though, you mentioned it already. For the first book, you did more of the traditional drawing and art. And of course, for the second book, The Oracle, you get into like what you're most known for, more of the graphic kind of computerized art, if you will. It looks straight out of a video game. You can definitely tell
Yeah.
that that's a lot of the work that you're known for on top of everything else. You're
Yeah.
obviously amazing. It's hard to like put that in a nutshell. But at the same point in juncture, like, was that kind of like freeing in a way to kind of do that in like a graphic novel-esque kind of way?
I really enjoyed both, honestly. Like, I don't think I could have done one without the other. Like the original book really helped define the universe. It helped define the characters, the designs, and after that, I mean, it definitely took the longest. That was like it took almost a decade of me chipping away at the first book. But after that, it's kind of like, okay, the world's established, designs are established. We built them in 3D, and then the new book is almost like it almost is like a movie or a game illustration production, like how we would treat, like if Neil Blomkamp came to us to make Elysium, that's kind of how we would make beautiful story moments for a movie to visualize a script. Um, and the new book is definitely more production as well. So there's a few artists, Steve Wang and Nicholas Gecko, that helped that are part of my team now. It's kind of growing now.
It's enough different that anybody can get into it. Like it's not you can't really put it in a box. Like I said, and it's not like to downplay the first book, because the first book is fantastic. All comic book fans will rejoice, and I think that that's where you see the divide, because that is very familiar. But like I just was drawn to just like how big like the art can be. Like I think that a lot of us have gotten into, especially because coming from the comic book graphic novel realm, like a lot of us have gotten just so used to this. It has to be done inside of a panel. It has to be, fit this like into this nice little shoebox, if you will. But it was like freeing to see these big, beautiful pieces of art come to life, and really still you still get the story. The story's still there. I would assume that you're putting the same amount of story, just not inside of bubbles that you are on the side. But you get so much more of this beautiful world. And I felt like, oh, I kind of understand a little more where we're going. I think that's what you were driving for, because in the first book, yeah, you get this beautiful story, you get the beautiful art. In this one, though, you're like, I'm in the world. You're immersed in the world,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just it's such a like a freeing thing. Has there been any kind of like, and I know you said some people are fans of it not, has there been any kind of pushback because of like the out of the box direction?
I don't know if there's pushback, but it's definitely been interesting to see reactions. Like some people love the trailers and then they're like, "Oh, I got the book, but the art doesn't look anything like the trailer." I'm like, "Just wait for the second." And then they get the second book like, "This is amazing." So it's like people it's interesting to see like where people like some people find it because they followed my work. Some people saw the trailers and wanted the product. But then it's also people who bought the new book because they like the trailers and the more realistic art, and then they go backwards and find the graphic novel and they're like, I didn't think I would like that, but the story is really great, and I see it's cool to see how you took that and turned it into this. And it's almost like they're part of the genesis of how all these things got started. And also the opposites. Like some people love the original graphic novel and they like the new one, but they're like something about a graphic novel is just so unique. So it's been cool. And yeah, I'm still trying to weigh the pros and cons of like if the third story in the trilogy will be go back to that or stay in this visual storybook or I'd also really love to just do a traditional novel, like totally text, because I'm a huge fan of just like traditional novels. So like part of me would love to have maybe a fourth story later on that is just pure uh, written novel.
For people who don't understand, because once again, it's easy to understand the traditional art form with what you do in the Oracle. And I know that this is probably like for you, this is second nature. Once again, you've done this all over different mediums and now doing it here. What's the art process to that compared to like the, as you put it earlier, the old fashioned way of just sketching out in a book with pen and inks?
Well, now we have characters, so it's more it's almost like because we use a lot of like Blender and 3D and then paint over things in Photoshop and illustrate things like we would on a movie. But so it's almost like we have a bunch of characters and toys, and we're making these moments. But sometimes we do need a new character, so that still kind of happens traditionally. Like in the Oracle, we have the Oracles, which didn't exist in the original graphic novel. We have the Dreamwalkers, which are totally new characters that didn't exist in the graphic novel. So there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be designed, and so I'll still do that, sketch things out. Okay, I want these characters to be like cloaked with red eyes from this character that they took parts from, and have antenna all over their body to like mask their presence. And then it's still like designing a new character. How does this fit within the universe? Does this make sense? Does it feel like it has a purpose? Um, and then we'll build that in 3D or refine that with the original character team that worked on the trailers with me. And then we have a new character that can be used for new illustrations and stuff. Um, so it's still more of like a film production, but we still have to go back sometimes where it's like, oh, I got an idea for a cool new character that we need for this story. Um, and even the next book, like it gets there's some really huge battle scenes. So a lot of it was like, how do we build out this giant war scene with like these two armies or something? And it almost becomes like making a movie in a way. Like if we made this VFX shot, how would we frame these two armies or something breaking a wall or something? And uh, it's really fun.
So, like you said, there's a lot of great characters. There's a lot of like original and great characters. I'm going to ask you from the writing standpoint, the creating, and then actually the art standpoint. So it's the same, but for one of each, and maybe it's the same. Which character really stood out? Like, what did you find yourself more attached to, whether writing or art? Like I said, if they're two different ones or the same, like which one drew you in the most? You think?
I talk about this a little in documentary, but like each character, there's a part of me that I put into each character. Like Huxley is very introspective and he's almost like the audience in the original graphic novel, he's sort of like the audience being brought along on the journey and understanding this universe through his eyes in a way, and then becomes a bit, I don't want to spoil anything, but becomes a bit more important, or you learn a lot more at the end. Um, and then Max to me is maybe Max and Huxley are the most I resonate with because I put a lot of myself in them. And in the original graphic novel, he's like an old grizzled soldier at the end of his life or his career, and kind of like trying to figure out a way to like he gets teamed up with a young recruit that kind of like gets him to hope and dream again. Like maybe I can change my life. Maybe it's not over for me. I don't know. I think I feel we've all felt like that, or just like working in my industry. Like you get working for a while, and you're like you meet people, and like wow, like, it gets me excited again. And maybe Max and Huxley are some of the ones I resonate a lot with. Yeah.
Really drawn towards Max just because like, I think that, somebody like me in my early 40s, you still like you it's not really that, but you can kind of look back and like, hey, like here was my past and here's like, everything, but hey, I still can have a future ahead. And I really found that like his it's a white it's a especially going from the first book to the second book, because obviously we're going to prequel territory, you kind of get to see like a little bit of what makes, that, like it's a weird dichotomy, because like that second book you're just kind of like you said, you're looking through the eyes like, oh, this is what happens with everybody. Age comes in, doubt comes in, you're looking towards the end of everything, but then, oh, wait a minute, I can have some hope, and I just thought the character's journey, like it's wild to have like a older character, if you will, and then like showing him when he's younger, like in his where his gifts are going to go, and you're just kind of like, oh, this is
Yeah.
really really cool. And
It's
I like the fact that you did it back. I shouldn't say backwards, but I like the fact that the older version's shown first, and then the prequel version is shown.
yeah, it's interesting because it's interesting to see what people resonate with also. Like in my mind, I felt like because if I went forward in time, it could get really weird. Like you're going like deep space, or it could get really like space opera. So I kind of like the idea of going backwards a little bit to create some more human stories to really connect with people. Um, but I had people who just said, "Oh, I didn't care about the humans at all. I just loved Huxley. Like I really identified with Huxley. Like that's the only character that was my favorite character." It's like, wow, okay. I thought people would maybe not connect with him as much because he's a robot, and they connect more with soldiers, or so. Like it's interesting to see like people just what people like, what people don't like, or what resonate more or less, and that's cool. Like it's cool to see like it's the kid is out in the world, and it's kind of it's taking a life of its own kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and I can agree though. Huxley is such a great character as well. Not in the ways, because obviously two different things, but you kind of get drawn to Huxley in the way that almost like for somebody my age, you look at it like Johnny Number Five. You kind of look at it like there's something that endears him to you, even though he's a robot. Like there's still like this like love, and it's weird. It's I kind of like what you were just saying. It's hard to explain because you're like at the end of the day, it's this machine, but there's still something endearing about him as a machine, like that you fall in love with over the pages, and you're like, oh, and you care about, and you want to make sure you're like nothing better happened to it. Like it's like one of those weird things. Like, can these things hurt him or did they not? And you're giving feelings to an inanimate object. Well, it is, it's weird. It's just, but it was really well done, and I can't say that enough.
Thank you.
And it's not just the art. The art is fantastic, obviously, but like the story itself is just drives home some really like deep things. And when you were going through the story and telling the journey, the hero's journey, if you will, and then deciding to do the prequel, like I said, I think that was in my case, in my opinion, I should say, it was ingenious to just go back in time. Like, because you set up the framework for the future, did you run into any challenges with doing the prequel after?
I don't know if there's anything that came. I think certain things are like because the demon character or the phantom class robot in the original book, I wanted to find a way to have that like build that character a little bit more, show like what this thing is in the universe. But then it's like you can't. I don't want to do things that would supersede or overlap somehow, or there's a few things like that where it's like, oh, these characters exist, why didn't they exist there? But okay, maybe they got wiped out, or uh, maybe we have a glimpse of this character. Max just thinks it's gone or destroyed, but it shows up later in the original graphic novel. So there's a few things like that where it was like I wanted to show the height of where all this could have gone, but by the time we get to the original graphic novel, it's been destroyed and it's not great. It's basically like just survival. There's no advancement anymore, and that's all there is to the world, and people are just kind of stuck. Machines and humans are both stuck. It's kind of not great, and that's where Huxley giving them hope is really great. But in the Oracle, I would like the idea of like, what did the height of the Roman Empire of machine power and artificial intelligence, what did that look like, or what would that look like? And that was really fascinating to me. But then also, what is a human or a soldier's journey through Max's eyes, living through the fall of this? So by the time we get to the original graphic novel, he's a bit jaded and old because he saw what could have been, and then it was all destroyed, and he's a bit maybe defeated, or just how do you live through the fall of your reality and find a purpose and find a way to live on and find a way to find meaning after you saw such horrible things happen. And the next book after Oracle, I try to tie it to the start of the original graphic novel, so it's a full loop in a pretty cool way. Yeah.
So with that, and I'm glad you brought this up because this is one of the things I really kind of going over it when you said about how it kind of like it's the decline. Like we get to see the decline first, and we have in the beginning. And I know I'm going to oversimplify this just to kind of like explain it better, because once again, this is a hard book and series to kind of put into a box. But like when you said Mad Max at the beginning, when you get to the graphic, the graphic now, the first book, Huxley, you end up seeing that they're kind of in for lack of a better term, and I know there's technology, but you kind of see that it's like sticks and stones. Like you're like you've lost this great technological like world. Like you could tell that there was greatness before, and now it's gone, i.e. kind of like a Mad Max. You're going through the barren, and we have the hope with Huxley. But how did you like think about going through there? Because like in terms, a lot of the story, yes, there's humans in the story, but a lot of the story deals with droids and robots. So how did you come about a way to like make it look like you could actually, because you pull it off, but make it look like you could be back into a time where there isn't the quote unquote technology that there should be, while still having these big technological marvels like droids and robots?
Well, I think a lot of it, I mean, we get into it in the next book, we learn a bit more, but like during the Oracle time, we sort of imply that there's like high level artificial intelligence, and the oracles are almost like the physical arms of an artificial intelligence deep below Machine City. And after the fall, all of that is completely decimated. And so maybe there's just basic subsystems like, oh, you can go to this terminal and get a job, but no one's like guiding humanity and machines into the future with a grand plan and making sure everyone's working towards this ultimate goal. It's just kind of like been wiped out. It's almost like if we had the internet was helping us all go towards some huge goal, and someone just like completely destroyed the internet, and we're all scattered, and we kind of can have little groups and can work together to maybe make a city kind of work, but that kind of bigger purpose and connectedness that brought us all together was completely wiped out. And even in the Oracle, we have these giant drop ships and stuff, and all that just gets wiped out. So the technology and the knowledge to like even build those advanced like war machines is kind of like forgotten and lost. And yeah, it's sort of this. I try to like go over like, how do you go from the Roman Empire to the fall, and no one can, that information and wisdom and knowledge is completely gone to build another Roman Empire for many, 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 many years.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's kind of like this weird, like you do a tremendous job of explaining it, like when you're reading it, but then like it's kind of like this huge like mind trick to you as well as the reader, because you're like, well, I'm seeing technology, but we know that it's not. Especially after after you read the Oracle, like you're like, oh, it used to be this, and now and it's just like kind of like I said, it was really after reading the Oracle, I'm like, wow, that's kind of interesting that we're kind of in the Stone Ages, if you will, for AI, and it pulls off and it makes sense. Because I think like all of us think about like technology, when you see technology, like, oh, it's already advanced, but there's a very realistic way of becoming de-advanced while still having some advancements. And it's kind of just really awesome to see on the page, because like I said, we don't usually see that. Like you think of something like Mad Max, and other than having vehicles, they kind of, and certain weapons, they kind of lose all of their advancements. Like,
Yeah.
you don't see a lot of the advancements. Whereas here we are clearly seeing, different kind of droids, different kind of AI, responding robots and stuff like that in the book. So it's kind of like a neat way to show a completely different thing. And that's why I said this is really cool and outside the box. And I know you've said it a couple times, but you have the third book that's going to come out either later this year or
Mhm.
next year. And in that book, it's going to be, I'm assuming, another prequel, like you said, tying them together. Is there
Yeah.
thoughts on
Like the
doing a
second
fourth or fifth
parts.
book?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's basically right now it's like 4 books telling 3 stories, the first trilogy. And the next story after this book is even earlier in time, like when they're more like teenagers, a bit more of a young adult kind of story, like maybe something closer to like a Hunger Games, Battle Royale, Maze Runner type story of the teenagers, like how are the kids, teenagers born? How do they live and survive? What do they need to go through to like pass the test to be accepted into the Ronin army to go to training? Like, what is that early stage of their life to prove they're the best or worthy, and go into the to training to become a Ronin?
That sounds even cooler. Like it's kind of like I said, it's interesting to me. Like I'm kind of a fan of this kind of going back in time and kind of tying up the things. Like we're usually used to like a linear thing, and occasionally you see a prequel. Occasionally you get one of those just because sometimes people want to go back in time, and usually in those cases it's to patch up something that they made a mistake on in the future timeline. And in this case, it's kind of like even though you're telling the story in reverse, it's really kind of cool because it just gives you this bigger, broader picture of what this world is supposed to be. And it is a big and epic world. And knowing that you come from, the world of Hollywood and such, is there any thoughts of hopefully one day this becoming a movie or some sort of series?
Of course, definitely exploring a lot of options. I mean, there's a lot of the trailers and stuff help a lot because we've kind of eliminated a lot of doubts in the room, like, oh, what would this look like? And that's usually the hardest part. So yeah, definitely exploring and pushing on all uh, fronts to make something happen, and definitely let you know when we can say something.
That'd be awesome. This is to me, it would be just such a great, like I said, it's rooted in enough that it's familiar, but it's such an original concept at the same time. Like when you look at it, like it's hard to put it in a box. Like I said, you can say, "Oh, it's like this," or "It's like that," but it's just a piece of this and a piece of that, and then it's its own original thing outside of that.
Yeah,
Like and that's why I think like when you're looking for something that's like a breath of fresh air, that's the kind of thing I think we're all looking for. Because, let's be honest, there's times you're like, "Oh, it's just, you can throw it in the box. Like it's a version of this, or it's a version of
right.
that." And in this case, it's like, "Oh yeah, it's familiar. I see pieces of what I'm familiar with, but oh wow, this story goes in a completely different direction than I'm used to." And that's another reason why everybody should go out and order the book. Let's be honest. I'll put the QR code back up. Everybody go out and order the book. Like I've been blown away by it just reading it. And like I said, if even if you're not big on like reading, the art is just fantastic enough to make sure you get a copy as well. But let's have some fun here. If I know we were doing original stuff and you've worked on a ton of different things, if you could have the rights to any IP in the world, let's think about it. No, the lawyers are not an issue, money's not an issue. You don't have to worry about it. What story would you do next? Like of any famous IP?
I'd love. I mean, I worked on Halo, but there's a lot of great stuff in Halo that I would love to see get made that hasn't gotten made, or maybe doesn't seem like they might make it. So like, there's some really cool like stories I'd love to tell or make into a game in that IP someday. That there's some really cool stuff in there.
Listen, if you could get the rights to do that, I will tell you right now, and feel free to take this or not. When I was looking at the Oracle and like looking at the art in it, very muchly like you get definitely feel strong Halo vibes. If you did the book in the style of the Oracle, but maybe made it more of a graphic novel, I think you could tell some amazing stuff, which would be really amazing in the world of Halo. We have had Halo comics in the past, but there's just something about the differenting in the art. Like that's where I think that like and not taking anything away from the artist who drew the Halo comic books. I think they did an amazing job, but it still doesn't look like the game. If you took the art that looks like the game and put it in actual comic book slash graphic novel form, I think that that would be tremendous. Uh,
It's interesting. It's interesting because like the original Ghost in the Shell graphic novels are a little like silly and playful, but what Mamoru Oshii did in the 1995 Ghost in the Shell was like made it really serious and adult, which I think a lot of us hold that as like a incredible achievement what he did there. And I feel like I really like this kind of like tonal shift, and similar to like Samuel Pedersen, who directed the Stardate, or he directed the Stardates, but he directed the Oracle trailer. I feel like he did the same thing with Warhammer, where there's a lot of my first experience with Warhammer was through his Astartes animation because it was so like badass and serious. But then when I dug into Warhammer more, I saw like there's a lot of stuff there. Some of it's kind of silly because it's just been around for a long time. But like he took this one part of it and made it like so mature and cool and like R-rated like tone that I was so cool. In a similar way, what happened with Ghost in the Shell, and like I feel like there's a way to do that with Halo too, and I haven't really seen anyone do that. So I think that would be pretty fun.
I know this is a big, massive world, but is there anything you could see crossing over with Huxley?
I'd love to see like crossovers as far as like the characters going into other games or things like this. I mean, we've been in discussions with certain things like this, where it's like skins in different games, where it kind of fits, where it's like, oh, this game's kind of post-apocalyptic, and that would be kind of a cool crossover kind of thing. But I'm not sure how it would work with other characters going into Huxley, like narratively.
It's kind of funny because you mentioned Warhammer earlier, and I was like, that would be a perfect mix of the two because it kind of fits into that. You could actually probably do a whole army in
I've had a lot of people
Warhammer
ask about
based
that.
upon
Yeah.
that.
People,
Yeah.
I have done little 3D print tests, and I have a lot of friends who do Warhammer. They're like, "Oh, send me this. I'm gonna make like a army." Yeah, like I was doing little tests and just like, that
Yeah.
would be pretty cool.
It definitely lends itself, and like I said, I know I'm at home right now recording this, but, usually I do have a studio that's at a game shop. A friend of mine owns a game shop, so we have a lot of Warhammer going on, a lot of Warhammer tournaments, so, like, I'm used to seeing, like, people store their stuff there and the beautiful art that they do with those wonderful things, and that's why in my head, like, when I'm just drawing the 2 together, and I'm like, "Oh, that would be so cool to see, like, an army based on that world in Warhammer." So there you
I'm a big
go. I mean,
Warhammer
there's
fan. I
another
really like
there's
Warhammer. Yeah, that'd be cool.
there's another great idea. So we're gonna come here to towards the end, but I want to give you one more time to pitch to anybody. What is the final pitch on why they should go over to HuxleySaga.com and order their copies of not just Huxley the Oracle, but also the first book, Huxley?
It's a great time to explore new IPs and new things. And if you've been feeling like you've getting tired of the same old thing, I think Huxley would be a great breath of fresh air to go and check out and dive into a new sci-fi post-apocalyptic universe that's growing rapidly and fast, and excited to share more with the next book. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will second that. If that QR code there is going to make it so much easier for you to go. If you scan that, go over, check it out. You're not going to be disappointed. The art is fantastic. The story is fantastic. Hell, I'll even say this: the packaging that it comes in is fantastic. So like everything about it is really great. If you are looking for something different, if you are looking for something that is really cool yet familiar, that is probably my best pitch line for it. Go check it out for sure. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time out for us here at Fanlight Zone. Really enjoyed the conversation, and we will definitely have to have you back on when you launch that third book because I am super, for my own personal selfish reasons, I'm super pumped to see where the story goes. So thank you so much for giving us the time, and thank you for stopping by with us today.
Thanks so much, Rich. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, with that being said, make sure you check out Huxley and Huxley the Oracle. Get over to HuxleySaga.com. And while you're at it, drop over to FanlightZone.com where you can check out all the stuff and great stuff and comic books and stuff. And of course, the new comic book day coverage we have there as well. As well as while you're here on the YouTube channel, make sure you are subscribing, hitting the bell icon for notifications, and also hitting that thumbs up because we want to do more great things like this interview we did with Ben today. So with that being said, for myself and the Fanlight team, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and enjoy great comic books and graphic novels, especially like Huxley and Huxley the Oracle. Later.